Welcome to another episode of Lifting the Soul Ministries podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the masculine leadership and the promises that it brings. And there's three things that we're going to be touching on today of what that masculine leadership looks like. And one of them is going to be direction. The second one is security. And the third one is growth. And how these three things can really help strengthen the relationship and really kind of pour into what our women are looking for out of us as men. So I'm going to pass the gauntlet over to Jason here, and he can kind of introduce us a little bit more into what we're going to be talking about.
Thanks, Jason. So yeah, the masculine leadership promise, what is that, or what are they? And these promises are really more of the promises you make to others as well as the promises you make to yourself. What makes these so important is that the people around you, especially your significant other and those that depend on you, aren't going to say things like, I need you to lead, even though that's exactly what they are meaning, what they want to say. But emotions and language are not naturally compatible. Emotions are based on reactions, and they take place in a totally different part of the brain than language does. Language, logic, and reasoning happens from the cerebral cortex. The cerebral cortex. Thank you. And this is responsible for our ability to think, to reason, to logically understand, to solve problems, and speak. And then you've got the part of the brain that is responsible for language. And this is, the part of the brain that's responsible for emotion. And this is the part of the brain that is the midbrain, the part that we use for reaction. So you've got the amygdala, you've got the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, the thalamus, all the really intricate parts of the brain that we can identify as parts, and all have a specific function to drive our survival. That's really what the midbrain is designed to do, is drive our survival. That and the lower part of the brain. And when you factor in the fact, when you look at the fact that these two very important parts do very important things, and they don't communicate, it's no wonder that we have communication issues with each other, because we can't even communicate well with ourselves. And so part of the task is to really understand what is it that drives you, that drives all of us as men. What is it that drives us as men? And then being able to successfully articulate that to ourselves and then to others. And so when you look at the three areas, direction, security, and growth, these are the three areas that make men really who they are. The direction is purpose. Security is both protection and community building. They go hand in hand. And growth is the ability to push yourself and bring others along to achievable goals that are shared, goals that all of us really want to achieve. Being able to identify those and being able to let others know that you can lead them there. And so by understanding that, we really understand that we are in control of the decisions that we make. And those decisions lead to the actions that become evident of our ability to understand our own decision-making process. Because we understand what drives it, our beliefs. And our beliefs are driven by our thoughts and our feelings. And by being able to understand all those things, the thoughts and the feelings, the things that the logical pieces as well as the emotional pieces, understand them both and create a bridge that we can use to help take our emotions and put them into language and then articulate them as feelings so that we can better understand how we're going to lead, how we're going to be a force that is able to negotiate and resolve conflict in order to achieve that shared goal. So, Jason, when talking about that, what comes up for you?
Well, there's so much that to unfold there, Jason, with with everything you talked about. And it's so crucial to understand those aspects of things where really getting to understand who you are, what your passions are, what your drive is, and everything like that. When I look at my marriage, when I was there were some things that we had as common goals that we set forward to, and when we worked towards them, it was good. Like we had something to work towards, but there was other areas in my life that I wasn't able to provide, such as like the security and the personal growth kind of aspect of things. Those were areas in my life that I was really lacking. But even in the vision part of it, I realized that there was a part of me, even though we had these goals and things like that, I didn't really have a full direction of where I was going in life or where I really wanted to bring the family into life. And so there was some areas of that was lacking as well. And that did cause a lot of conflict, because it caused a lot of confusion. And because I couldn't articulate even what I did have in that, it just created that barrier even more. And the important thing, I believe, that once we come out of all this and we start understanding who we are as men and what our vision is, what we want to have in the family and stuff like that, we're wanting to try to communicate this to our wives. There are some things that are very important that we need to consider. And it's not about being a dictator in the relationship in regards to how we put this stuff forth as well. Like it's about creating that, and this is part of the safety part, it's about creating that environment where you can grow and blend together, but you have that initial vision and you're sharing it and you're communicating it, so that when in a way that your spouse is like, wow, you know what, this guy's got something, I can get on board with that. This is something I can actually follow and move towards. And you know, there might be a little bit of friction. There's always going to be friction at some point, right? Like this is the part of relationships that's always there. But as long as you can hold on to that vision and not lose yourself in that conflict, and still continue to point in the direction that you want things to go, and do it in a way where you're not controlling it or limiting what your spouse has to say in that sense, and that she feels free to express herself as well in that, it will bring so much more cohesiveness in the relationship when you're moving forward in this leadership world.
You know, something you said I wanted to circle back to when you talked about how when you weren't leading it, or that there wasn't any real clear path that the relationship was going, that this is when the relationship most suffered. And this is a common thing that I see in a lot of relationships that I coach. And the reason why is because the moment that your significant other, your wife, doesn't know what the direction is, or doesn't trust your ability to create that direction, survival dictates that she's going to create the direction herself. Because a relationship, nothing can exist without direction. Without direction, things decay. And your inability, not you, Jason, but talking to the people, your inability or your refusal to lead is going to put that responsibility on her where it doesn't really belong. She has her role to play. And her role to play is extremely significant. It is so significant that to cause her or to force her to lead makes her abandon the role in which she was born to play, the role that she comes by naturally. And so having those two things on her plate means that things have to be sacrificed. Things have to be sacrificed in the relationship, in the goals, and in the family. They all suffer. And because of that, resentment builds because of the inability for both people to play nobly their part, to take the responsibility that they were destined to fulfill, and fulfilling that. And another point you mentioned about the idea of visionary leadership versus commanding leadership. Commanding was more of a word that David Goldman and Richard Boyatzis used in their book, Primal Leadership. But it is that command and control type of leadership. And understanding that, yes, you want to have a vision and you want to invite others to see that vision with you. And I think the biggest problem of relationships where communication breaks down, where conflict happens, is the lack of trust in that vision. or the lack of understanding of where the vision is going to lead. It's not well thought out, or it's not well understood by you. So how the hell can you possibly help other people understand it as well? And it becomes something that is, again, it creates anxiety because it creates questions, and anxiety creates rash decisions. Rash decisions erode the relationship.
Yeah, and to take a step further, when the relationship starts eroding and she starts stepping into that role of, where she's trying to now lead, or feels that she has to lead, and she goes from being like a partnership to it being kind of in a parental almost role. And when she starts going into that, that's when she starts losing attraction. She starts losing respect, and all this stuff, because now you're just another thing for her to take care of. If there's children in the family or whatever, like now now I just got to deal with that too, right? And so in the back of her mind, there's other things happening that are on a subconscious level that is just pushing her away more, pulling her away more, and that causes a really big problem as well.
Yeah, so let's go into the first promise. Now that we've well set the stage, let's actually dive into this, because I think that the men listening to this are going to find a lot of really useful information. At least I hope they do. We shall see. So the first promise is direction. And as I had stated before, when I was talking about this briefly, this is about knowing where you're going. You don't have to have it all planned out. That's something I want to make really... I want to hit this point home. You don't have to have it all figured out. What you do have to have figured out are the next moves you're going to create and where you want to end up generally. Now, as you get closer to that, it's going to solidify more, and you're going to be able to see exactly what it is you want to do. But a lot of the times, what we want comes from what we don't want. And that what we don't want really helps to understand what we do want, as long as you don't stay focused on what you don't want. The more you stay focused on something, the more you attract it to you. This is the law of attraction, the law of abundance. What you have fixed in your mind is what you're going to attract. So when you attract things that you don't want, the subconscious, which is your transmitter receiver, doesn't understand the concept of negative. So words like no, not, don't, isn't, things like that filter out of the subconscious awareness. So when you say, I don't want to be poor, all it hears, or what it really understands, is I want to be poor. It doesn't understand the word don't, so it filters that out. What's left is exactly what you want. So focusing on what you want comes from, yes, understanding what you don't want, but not making that your focus. I don't want to be poor. What does that mean? Okay, what is it that I want? I don't want to be poor, I know that, but what do I really want? I want to make money. Okay, how do I want to do that? Now you have a way of being able to positively associate questions and answers that your mind will give you. Because another hack is that your mind hates open loop questions. Questions that start with what or how create open loops. And if you say, how am I going to do this? How am I going to make $10,000 by in 3 months? And you just hang that out there in your brain. Your brain's going to go crazy. And it's going to do one of two things. Either it's going to create the answer out of nothing. It's going to say, okay, well, you know what? This is what I know. So based on what I know, let's extrapolate how to do that. So we're going to do this. This is a good idea. Boom. It presents it to you as a fit of inspiration. Or it remembers. It either creates or remembers. It digs through all the research that it knows, all the experiences that you've had. For me, it's going to be 45 years of experience. And it's going to create a plan based on that to say, do this. And that's going to be your point of inspiration. This is the ability to really understand your direction. Asking these kinds of questions, what and how type of questions, are a hack in being able to really understand what it is that you want and how you're going to get there. It may not be accurate, but you know what? It's forward momentum. And as long as you are moving forward with confidence, this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to dedicate myself to this. That's really all that matters. This is really what direction is. It's not knowing the right direction. It's moving forward in a direction and knowing that you're going to get there eventually. And having that kind of mentality is one of the best ways to show that you know where you're going. or at least you're baffling with bullshit until you actually do.
You know what, Jason, you bring up so many great things right there. And this is where I really, I want to touch base with where I'm at right now personally, in regards to what I've been doing with Lifting the Soul Ministries, just to kind of bring an example to what everything Jason was just talking about. When this first came to me, this vision of Lifting the Soul Ministries, I just got this impression that this is where I'm supposed to be going. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. The people I'm supposed to be serving are men who are struggling in their relationships, and how I can empower them. I didn't know the hows, the what's, all that other kind of stuff, how it was going to be. I just knew that that's what it was. And I felt confident in my faith that this is the mission that was given to me. And so then I started taking steps forward by talking to, just bringing it forward with people. And that led me to getting my coaching certificates, which then I also knew that I needed to be connected with the right people, because there was a lot of stuff I didn't know. And all of a sudden, boom, I'm getting connected with the right people, which ultimately ended up, me being connected to you, Jason, and how we can collaborate and stuff like that. And it's just been a series of okay, I've got this vision. I don't have it all fully planned out. There's a lot of details that I have worked out, but it hasn't fully gone the way that I thought it would, because I don't know everything. But I'm still moving forward. And now here we are today. We're putting this podcast out to get our message out, to share with you guys. And we've got a course that we're putting together that is going to be presented here soon for you guys. It's all steps that we're taking as we're just doing the actions, trusting and doing exactly what Jason said, right? We got the vision, we've got the mission, and we are moving forward, taking action, not necessarily knowing all the intimate details in between, but through our collective experience, through the things that I've been learning, through the things that Jason has learned and is continuing to learn as well, we're taking these steps forward, and this vision and everything is coming together as a direction. You use this example for what you want to do in your marriage relationship, what you want to do with your family, or for anything else in life, with your career, or anything else that you are wanting to move forward with in life. It's about, okay, I've got this vision. I see it. I know it's there. It's real for me, right? Bring the emotion into it, bring the power of that emotion into it, and take those steps forward, not necessarily even knowing fully what the next step is going to be, but just taking that action, and then you will be surprised at how the next steps will begin to unfold for you, and then you will gain momentum, and beautiful things will happen.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when you have just an idea of where to go, and to really also piggyback on what Jason was talking about as far as not knowing exactly where to go. The way we met was it was a very unique way. We met through a group that we both are a part of, and it was just through that chance meeting and understanding that we both have common goals, and we both really wanted the same thing. That started this whole ball rolling. And the reason why I emphasize that is because you're going to have a general idea of what you want, and that should stay general. In the book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, one tenet that he talks about is never hold so tightly what you have that you wouldn't accept something better. And the idea of this is to be curious about what else is possible. Now, I'm going to admit that I've spent a lot of time just jumping from idea to idea to idea to idea in my youth. I was so curious that sometimes I didn't even stay in something long enough to really figure out whether it was going to be a success or not. And that's part of my journey. I don't recommend it. I recommend that you try something until you know that either it is for you or it is not. Doesn't matter how hard it is. As long as you feel like it is for you, then you can move forward with it. And it's important to be able to move forward with it. If you feel like it's not for you, that is equally as important. Abandon it and let it go. Don't feel bad about it, because let's take Thomas Edison, for example. It took him 1,000 tries to be able to figure out how the light bulb was supposed to work. It wasn't until he understood that the burning out factor of the light bulb was happening so fast because oxygen was getting in there, and he had to create a vacuum in order for the magnesium to burn at a proper rate. It wasn't until he actually realized that he was able to create something that was workable, that was able to be sustained. It was an accident that he discovered that. And so anything that you do is probably going to be an accident, and that's okay. So don't worry about screwing it up. You're going to. I'm going to let you on that surprise right now. You're going to, and you're going to do it a lot. And it doesn't matter that you screw up. It's that you learn what you were supposed to learn from that, and you move forward. Okay, this wasn't it. Great. What about this was not it? What does that make me feel like this was a no, or that this was not for me, or this wasn't going to work, or wasn't worth your time, or whatever it is that you say that is going to make you feel like it's a pass? What was it about that? Log it. Really take it to heart and focus on that. Make that a criteria when you move to the next thing. Does it include this? It does. Okay, it's not for me. Right away. Okay, does it include this? No? All right, well, let's see what else happens. And now you're going to begin to build a repertoire of things that are not for you. You're not focusing on it, but you're using that as a filtering process. These are the things you don't want to experience, so you're going to filter those out. Focus on other things that you know that you do want. And that's really what creates such an important and valuable process for this. The more you play with this, the more you experiment, the more feedback you're going to get. And in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, one of the tenets that I absolutely love is the fact that there is no such thing as failure. There's only feedback.
That is probably one of the most important points about what you just said there, Jason, in regards to going into this direction phase, is to take those steps and one of the things that holds a lot of people back and holds men back or anybody back is that fear of, well, I've got to have it perfect before I put it out there. Nobody that I know is perfect. And we all make mistakes. And so it's about taking those steps and, like Jason said, learning from them. There is no such thing as failure. There's lessons learned. Or feedback, as Jason said. And so by adopting that mentality, when you're moving forward in direction in whatever area of life that it is that you're wanting to put that direction towards, like we're talking about with your relationship with your wife, with something you're wanting to achieve or do in life, with your career, or any of those areas of your life that you're wanting to put that direction towards, that's going to build, because having that direction is part of what's going to build into what the next thing we're going to be talking about, which is security. Because when you have that direction and vision, and you're able to articulate it enough that the message is clear, that will help, and then you're actually taking action towards moving towards it, to show that you're actually moving towards that direction. It's not just something you're talking about. That will build the trust and the idea that you actually are pursuing this vision. That will go huge in how that will create that environment. Okay, yes, he's got the vision. He's actually moving forward it. Now the wife is like, this is easier for me to get on board with, because you're actually doing it versus just talking about it.
And this segues beautifully into the security piece. And the reason why I use the word security, it's more than just protection. When you think of something that is secure, it is something that is reliable. It is something that you have confidence in, that is going to provide safety. And in this context, in the context of relationships, it's both physical, well, it's all three: physical, mental, and emotional safety. And the safety that comes from knowing that you can speak your mind without believing that you are rejecting someone. When your wife speaks to you in a realm of security, if your wife were to challenge you, you know that she is challenging the idea. She is not challenging your capacity as a man. And that is a huge difference. The ability to challenge ideas is absolutely necessary. We can't have any kind of growth without challenge. And so the challenge part has to be done within a system of trust. And security is what hopefully creates that trust, or at least builds the foundation for that trust to be had. And that foundation is, I know that when you speak to me, you are speaking ultimately in love. Even if you're angry, even if you're frustrated, even if you are emotionally dysregulated, I know that it is not an attack against my personality. Because if it were, then this relationship would no longer be trustworthy. And I really want people who are listening to understand that. If you are feeling that your credibility, that you as a person are being challenged to the point where your credibility as a man, or your credibility as a provider, your credibility as a reliable partner are being challenged directly, this is a warning sign of the relationship. It doesn't mean that you have to get divorced or that you have to break up or whatever. It just means that this is something to watch out for, something to fix, which is what the system that we are providing, that we will be provided very soon, really focuses on. This is one of the major things. In order to have a successful relationship, you have to have that belief that you have the dependability. You have the dependability, you have the emotional groundedness, and you're able to handle storms without losing control. And those three things combined, with some others, really help to give your partner and give others that interact with you the belief that you are stable. And stable people create stable reactions, create stable relationships, and people love stability.
That is so, yeah. I keep saying it's so important because we when we talk about this stuff, when I look at what happened in my relationship and things like that, this just is like screaming out to me, like, yes, like I needed to hear this, because for myself, there was a lot of things going on in my life personally through the relationship where I was not able to be emotionally regulated. I took everything personally, that it was an attack on my person. It took on the idea that I wasn't good enough or whatever, whenever I was challenged in the relationship. And that was a lot of stuff that was going on, and that was me personally that I was doing. So I had to take responsibility for that. And that's something I believe we should mention as well, that we really have to become aware of where our own personal emotional state is and how we are taking things on ourselves, as well as what the other person is saying. Because sometimes they are saying, and that's having the confidence in ourselves, and the confidence in who we are as a person, and the confidence in who and what our vision is, and all this other stuff. So that when we are being challenged and stuff like that, we're not looking at it as a personal attack. We're looking at it as a way that, okay, how can we now bring that stability that Jason was talking about into the communication, to have that groundedness and say, okay, yeah, we're at this place, there's a storm, the argument is happening, but it doesn't devalue who I am in the process. It's only going to help me to grow as we work through this process. And by stepping into that strength, by stepping into that ability to emotionally regulate ourselves, that will help our partner to feel that security, and then also help them to be able to emotionally regulate and to be able to find that stability within themselves as well, because you're modeling it to them. And I believe that is something that is really crucial, because I wasn't able to do that. And because I wasn't able to do that, my ex-wife had a hard time to do that as well, because she did have a lot of stuff that was from her past that she was also projecting onto me, and all sorts of stuff that I didn't recognize or didn't know how to see it in that form. at that time either. And so I believe it's important to be in spaces like this where we can learn from each other and from what others' experiences were, and to be able to understand that there is ways that we can look at things, see things, and really grow within ourselves that will help bring the stability that we're talking about, which will help bring the security into the relationship as we move forward. And it's if you're in a space that I was before in that relationship, I want you to know that there are things that you can do that can help start changing the direction of where you're at, and where you can start leaning into those strengths and start leaning into under the understanding that there is more to you, and it's not, and everything that's being said to you isn't necessarily a direct attack on you. It could be something that they're going through as well. And so to reframe your way of viewing that, the way those conversations are going, so that you can start to create that emotional security as well, and help your partner deregulate in the process.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about the idea of security, one thing that we're talking about is, imagine you have two different situations. One is you have this ship in a storm. The waves are crashing and rising, and the waves are lapping over the boat. It's rocking back and forth. There's rain everywhere. It's a mess. And it's nighttime, so you can't see a damn thing. All you can see is the water and the clouds. Sometimes, mainly water, because it's all around you. And you need to get somewhere, but you know the closer you get to your destination, there's also a risk that you could shipwreck against rocks, and you could completely miss your target. And so there's a lot of anxiety there. Are we going to make it? Are we not? Your job is not to be that ship in the storm. That ship in the storm is already controlled by someone else, known as your significant other. And I say that kind of jokingly and kind of serious, because your job, while that ship in the storm is happening, because this is known as life, your job is to be more of the lighthouse, the one that shines the light and guides, saying, I know where you have to go. If you're seeing this, move one way or the other, because coming closer to me, this is your warning sign. And then the spotlight that some lighthouses have was showing where you have to go, being able to guide you to where safety is. That's also the job of a lighthouse, to show that, yes, there is a steady influence, an indicator that land is close, be wary, and at the same time, follow the guidance. And being able to be that source of stability, and men are uniquely qualified to do that, is a huge responsibility and a great gift, because it means that even when things are tough, by being able to understand the chaos of life, which is the storm, things happen out of your control. They will continue to happen out of your control. And all you can do is be the influence that helps others understand that everything is going to be okay. And not because you're going to make it okay, but because you are a steady influence that is doing what you can to ensure a safe transition. Is it always going to be great? No. Are you going to shipwreck against the proverbial rocks every now and then? Yes. Repair the boat and keep going. All you can do. But eventually you'll get it right. And I know this because I'm a very slow learner. And it takes me a lot of time to learn certain things. I love making mistakes. I love doing things the hard way. People ask you, why do you do that? I don't know. I just do. Actually, I know why I do it, because I learn best from my own experiences. Someone can tell me something, but unless it's lived, I have a hard time being able to accept that. Some people say that as being a limitation, a flaw. But I don't know if that is. My first wife, my ex-wife, would agree that it's a flaw. And I would just say that she's full of crap. But the point is that you don't have to be perfect in your ability to guide. You just have to be steady. As long as you are steady, 8 times out of 10, you'll get it right most of the time. 80% of the time, it works 60% of the time. I'm kidding. It's not that bad. It's more the fact that it does take time, and it takes experience. But as long as you're willing to try, as long as you're willing to say, yeah, I got this, you feel like you don't, but you are portraying the fact that you do, and you have a plan of some kind. That's all that she needs.
That's very well said, Jason. And as you're talking and sharing this, one of the things that was coming to mind for me is the idea of a parent-child relationship. Is there's ways that we can parent our children in the sense of where we could helicopter and hover over them, over their entire relationship, and we can do all this stuff where we're telling them to do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, and we set up all these rules, these boundaries, and we're constantly smothering them with all this stuff, and we're not allowing them to live their own life or experience their own things. At some point, it will come to a point where they're constantly and totally always dependent on you, and they're not able to make decisions for themselves and stuff like that because they're constantly relying on you. But if you allow the child, yes, give them direction, give them your insight, your experience, your knowledge, all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, allow them to explore for themselves, because allow them to make those mistakes, because it is through the mistakes that they've learned through their own experience where they can say, oh, wait, you know what? Mom did say that to me at one point. Now this makes sense. Oh, you know what? Dad said something about that. Huh. Wow. And so those life lessons that you teach your children have more impact on them when they do make those mistakes. And so it's the same thing when we're talking about in the marriage relationship and stuff like that. Like, it's not about being perfect. It's not about being completely in control. It's about being that lighthouse. It's about being that okay, this is I'm going to be the one that's grounded. I'm going to be the one that's shining the light as to kind of give some form of direction. And when the storm comes, we have something that we can focus on. And your wife has something that she can focus on. And it will, again, provide some of that direction. And as Jason said, yeah, you know what? Even with that lighthouse shining, people still end up ramming into the rocks or going ashore because, sometimes the seas are a little rougher than what you anticipated, and you're being pushed into it harder than you thought, or you're just not paying proper attention to what the direction is actually showing you. But that happens. That's a part of life. And so it's about, then it's, another part about providing that security and the safety is when that mistakes happen, when that stuff happens, is taking accountability for it and taking responsibility for that. You know what? I screwed up in this. And by admitting it and then being and taking responsibility for it and taking accountability for it, that will also provide security, because you're not trying to push it off on somebody else or pushing it off on your wife or whatever. They when they say, oh, wait a second, he's taking responsibility for that, and he's now recognized, okay, I made this mistake, now I can course correct. That will help build that trust, and it will help build that security in the relationship as well. And so that when the next time the storm comes and you got that lighthouse going, she can then say, you know what, I've got more ability to trust where we're going in this, even we're in this storm right now, because even if there is a mistake happens and we crash, I'm trusting that he will still have the integrity and all that stuff through the process, no matter how it comes out at the end.
That last part that you mentioned really is the evidence that your ability to have a plan, and to whether you You know it's going to work or not. That's not the point. And you are creating that stability emotionally and mentally. That you are saying, I got this. I'm scared as hell, and I don't know if it's going to work, but I got this. The evidence that your partner trusts you, the evidence that your partner is open to you, is that emotional trust. I trust that he's going to have our back, and I'm going to let him do what he does. I am not going to try and micromanage. I am not going to get in the way. I am not going to ask 1,001 useless questions that have nothing to do with what we're doing, but are just like a hamster wheel inside the brain. And I'm just going to let him. I'm going to let him cook. I'm going to let him do his thing. And by giving you that space, it is a gift. It is basically her saying, I trust you. I trust you enough to make sure that I'm not going to get in your way so that you can do what has to be done. And by recognizing that trust and honoring it through the plan that you make and the directions you take, providing that stability, it's going to make her more open to you emotionally. It's going to make her more available to you sexually, and it's going to make the trust flow even deeper. And you need that if you're going to grow.
That is it's 100% accurate, and it is a great segue into the growth part of what we're talking about. But I do quickly want to highlight on the idea of what you just talked about with the woman opening up sexually and being more emotionally in tune with you and all that other sort of stuff. When you're not providing that security, and because I see this a lot in some of the forums that I'm at, like one of the biggest things people talk about, well, my wife isn't, sexually active and all this other kind of stuff, and it is a big concern within the marriage, because and what the question to ask for you men, and for you to look into for yourself, is what am I doing to provide that security for my wife in these ways that we just talked about that will allow her to open up? And when you really take a look at what you're doing, then it goes into, okay, now where do I need to grow to provide this for her?
Absolutely. And it's through that reflection. And again, these are things that are really essential to provide, and we will have the course information for you soon, I promise. But because as you're going through this and as we're referencing these things, you're probably asking, so how do I do this? We'll have that information for you soon. But before that, let's talk about growth, because through that stability of security, this allows you to grow. And what growth is the space that both partners believe they can be better through their being together. They can become more than what they were because of the relationship. It doesn't mean that they absolutely will, but they can. And that possibility is important. Taking advantage of that responsibility is equally as important, but you can't take advantage of something that doesn't exist. And so understanding how, through the interaction of the both of you, when you fully trust each other, when the trust is flowing both ways, and you have the plan, you have an idea of what you want to do, and you dependably and reliably work towards that. And it gives her a sense of, man, I can trust this. This guy has his stuff together. And really, that's all it means, is that you're dependably and reliably working towards a goal. That's it. It's really easy. By doing that, it allows the both of you to understand where you can grow. She's asking herself, how can I better support this process that he is really working towards, the effort that he is making, the sacrifices that he is undergoing, and the stress that he is undertaking in order to make this happen. How can I better support him in this? And at the same time, knowing how she's supporting you and seeing her love through that support, through that that understanding of how can I better help, rather than saying, I don't see you doing anything. This isn't working for me. We're not really compatible. I don't know what you're doing. I don't feel safe. Instead of that, saying, how can I better help? What can I do to support you? Through that, you say, damn, this woman really does care. She really loves me. I need to make sure that I am worthy of that love. And so you better yourself. You become a better source of security. You become someone who is fulfilling that first promise of direction. You are making sure to have a plan of direction, even more focused. You are ensuring that what you are building, you're building just for the both of you, not just for you. And that is really what the idea of growth really surrounds.
And that is so true. When I started on this journey of post-divorce, of my own personal growth journey, this is something that I've been really recognizing as I'm growing as a person, as I'm growing as a man, as I'm redefining my vision and my life goals and all this sort of stuff, and as I'm preparing myself to welcome the next woman that's going to come into my life. I recognize that by me going through this process, by me growing myself and coming into this, and the next woman I bring into my life, to provide an environment where I'm also supporting her in her growth journey. And by me taking that leadership, by taking that steps of growing myself, it's going to encourage her to want to grow herself as well. And this growth part is about, now how can we together grow together in our relationship to get in a cohesive way? So we're not like, I'm going over here and she's going over there. It's about how can we grow together, and keeping that focus in mind, because that's the thing about a lot of another thing that can tear relationships apart is when you go in different directions, because I'm going to go grow over here and you're going to go grow over there, but we're not ever coming together to talk about how we can grow together. And because I've seen that also in relationships as well, of men that I've been in connection with, where the man is growing himself in this area and his wife is growing themselves in that area, and they're both growing as individuals, but they're not communicating in how they can bring that together within the relationship. And so even though both of them are growing in beautiful ways and they're both beautiful people, and there's not really fighting or contention necessarily in the relationship, but there's still that distance because you haven't provided that vision at the beginning as to how, yes, we're both going to go on this growth journey, but how are we going to go on this growth journey together? I think is something else that is really important to not forget about when we're talking about this growth process. Because if you really want the relationship to stay strong and healthy, you can have a direction, you can have a sense of providing a vision or security, but if you're not growing together, it's not going to come together as well. So you got to have really all three of them. And this growth part is important, because if you aren't growing as a person, if you're not growing as a couple, things will stagnate, things will become complacent, and you will end up reverting back to old patterns and stuff like that will cause division again. And so you really need all three to be working together and to have that in this growth part to be, how can we grow together, right? And it doesn't mean you have to do everything together 100% all the time, but when we're talking about providing that vision and providing that security and in this growth aspect, because there are some parts where you have to grow as individuals, but how does that growth as individuals still look at like when you are together as a couple, and how will that really solidify and strengthen that relationship as you are in this growth process?
Well, that's a really important question, and it begs to the process of growth, because growth, as you had mentioned, growth is what eliminates stagnation and complacency. because you're either doing two things: you're growing or you're atrophying. And what you don't use, you lose. This is a biological imperative of all living things. Things that are not used are lost. And so if you stop growing, then really you're moving backwards. You are losing what you built and what you're striving to have. The moment that you rest on your laurels is the moment that you become someone who has stopped growing. Anyone who feels like, well, I should be recognized for what I've done, that's a warning sign. That is a huge warning sign, because you have to keep on growing. You don't stop growing. You grow until the day you die, especially when it comes to character and when it comes to relationships. You grow until the day you die. And that is an absolute truth. You'll find that no matter where you look, no matter what source. It could be religious, it could be philosophical, it could be whatever. You'll find this everywhere. And the understanding is that the only way that you can help others grow is by first modeling growth yourself and inviting others to grow with you. Because you can't demand it. You can't demand that someone is going to go, I need you to do this because I'm doing this. That's not a relationship. That's a transaction. And now you're going into the commanding style of leadership, which is trying to control everything. And this is not a sustainable style. It's useful when the time comes, when the time calls for it. It's called a situational style. But it is not a style that can be used for reliable fidelity of a relationship. And so by modeling the growth that you want to see in the relationship, and by demonstrating how that growth is making you better, and by you being better, the relationship can be better. Ideally, if your partner and you are aligned, she will want to grow as well. In fact, she'll be called to grow. She'll feel like there is an imperative to grow, because without growth, there is loss. If you're growing and she's not, as the gap widens, this is another place where really relationships fall apart. But knowing that it's not your fault because you are constantly growing is really important. If you're growing and she's not, you can't do anything about that. If you're growing and she's refusing to, all that you can really do is find out why. And if she's unwilling to cooperate or whatever, sometimes relationships just have to end. It's an unfortunate truth. But if you are doing everything possible and you are making sure that you give her every opportunity as well to grow with you, and she takes it, this is what creates wonderful relationships. If she doesn't take it, you have to be okay with that, because she's going to do her own thing. You can control what she does, thankfully. So by modeling that growth, you inspire others to want to grow as well, as long as they are aligned with you. And this is something that I recently understood as being a great thing. As I grow in my marriage with my wife, I see her inspiration to want to grow as well. When I first entered the relationship, I still carried a lot of anger from my past. I had not let a lot of things go, and they still festered. And she tried to be as patient as she could with me, and even so, wanted to talk to me. And because she showed that patience, I was like, all right, if I don't do something about this, I'm gonna fail this relationship. And that's gonna be my fault. So I did the work. I saw what I wanted, and then I made steady progress, providing a plan, and then providing the direction and security, creating the process of making myself better. And in doing so, I was growing. And when I finally was able to release the stuff that I no longer wanted, I was able to focus on what I did want. And so I focused on that. And as my wife noticed that, she was like, wow, he's doing all of this. I wonder how I can grow as well. And that kind of question that other people are asking is the magic question. What else am I capable of? Or what am I capable of? Because I see what other people are capable of. It's inspirational. Mm-hmm. And the more you see that, the more you surround yourself with it, the more you want to embody that. The more you want to say, well, growth is possible. How can I grow? I can grow this way. Fantastic. What else am I capable of? It's something that makes you feel that nothing is out of bounds, because nothing is out of bounds. Only thing that's out of bounds are what govern reality, first of all, and then secondly, the limits of your imagination.
You said that very well, Jason. And when I think about what you were reflect on what you were just talking about with the growth and stuff, it's not about being perfect in your growth journey. It's about being consistent. And when you are stepping forward into this growth journey for yourself and you're showing the example, it is about making that consistency. And again, it goes back to also taking accountability. And
so yeah, the ability to be that consistent and reliable force. So piggyback on what Jason was talking about before he was rudely interrupted by a disconnection. When you have all three of these things, when you have the purpose, you have your direction of where you want to go and what you want to achieve. You have the steady, consistent foundation of working towards that, and you are growing because of the work that you are doing. Not only are you inspiring others to grow, but you are demonstrating what makes men's leadership, masculine leadership, so important. Because masculine leadership is a definition of service. To lead in a masculine way is to lead in a way that negotiates and resolves conflicts in order to achieve a shared goal. That is service. And anything that is imparted through an act of service is also, it feels like love is there. It is an act of love, because service is love. Basically, when you are acting in a way that others can relate to or that others can be inspired by, you can say, you can trust me. I'm leading somewhere worth going, and I won't crumble under pressure because I want more for us. And once you understand that you do want more for the two of you, that you want something more than all that she sees that the relationship provides, when she sees that you are growing, that there is something that you're working towards, and you're doing that consistently because you have that vision, she is going to want to trust in that more. The more that she sees that you're working towards something that is better for all parties concerned in your relationship, whether it just be the two of you, whether it be for the two of you and your kids, however many you have, and the community or the family at large, and then the community at large, and then even something even larger than that, something that has great implications, that leaves a legacy. The more that she sees that you are doing that, as long as she is not wanting to actively work against you because of her own agenda, which is something completely different, then this is where love lies, because she can trust in your ability to do that. And as you consistently do that, she becomes more emotionally invested. As she becomes more emotionally invested, you also become someone who wants to be more emotionally invested. And the more emotionally invested you both become, the more love that you have to give each other through the demonstration of service. Growth isn't perfect, but growth is sustainable. And as you grow, you learn how you can grow better. And through that growth, when you have these three parts of the purpose, the security, and the growth, you have a plan, you have a consistent foundation of being able to work towards that plan, and you have measurable ways of being able to show progress, whatever those measurable ways are. There's more than one way to create measurability. But by having that measurability, what you do is you create a cocktail that makes leadership feel like emotional connection. And in many cases, it feels like love. Trust is the bedrock of love. When the more a person trusts a process, the more they begin to emotionally invest in it. And that emotional investment is a bond. And that bond really is the definition of love. It is the acceptance and the celebration of what is there for all concerned to grow. And that really is the definition of masculine leadership. A little bit less flowery. It's really the ability to negotiate and resolve conflict in order to reach a shared goal. And that's really the stripped down version of it. When you look at how men lead, they lead first through being able to take many different points of view and distill them effectively into a single purpose. Taking that purpose and making it something that others can drive to, can drive forward with. It becomes the achievable goal. And then really figuring out how we all can get there, how we can cooperate to get there. Because life isn't about competition, it's about cooperation. The more you compete, the more distracted you become. The more you collaborate, the more you cooperate, the more focused you become. And when you cooperate on a shared goal, that focus becomes laser-like. So all that you are doing, everything you do, every fiber of your being is working towards that goal. And that really is what women look for in men. The ability to have that goal that they can communicate to others in a way that gets them on board, and then everyone having a role to get there. And that's really what masculine leadership is all about.
Yeah, you really definitely bring it home in that sense of creating that space with that vision, by creating that space through creating that idea of emotional security, bringing in the trust, being that stable ground, providing a path for growth, all these things that we've talked about today that really help to feed into that sense of feeling love, or feeling love, I should say, where the woman can feel that, and it reciprocates back to us. And we do all this, like we've been talking about from the very beginning in a lot of our discussions. It's not about being the dictator, and it's about being a servant leader in that sense, because everything that we're doing is through a sense of service to the people that we love, and to the people that we work with, and to the people that we are in community with, and all this stuff. It's about being of service. And yes, we do need to make sure that our emotional things are met, that our physical needs are met, all this other sort of stuff. But but we do that. We do that. We're able to accomplish that through that sense of service to others as well, in a healthy way. And by doing these things that we've talked about today, by providing that form of leadership and everything that through the vision, through the security, through the growth, it goes a long ways to solidifying and creating that bond that Jason was talking about. And it is about collaborating. It's not about competing with each other. It's about collaborating. We are stronger together as a unit, working together in a unified direction, even if it's not, in a more unified direction, I should say. That'd be the best way. Not a united, there's a difference between being like completely on one vision and a track where you're collaborating, but there's also a vision and a whatever, where it becomes almost like there's no room for outside thought, I guess, is kind of where I'm trying to just, right? You still want to be allowed to have some outside thought, but by providing that vision, that allows the direction to take fold. And so even when there is some outside thought and other things that come into play that may, shift things a little bit here and there, you still are going in that same united direction. And it's better to do that through collaboration than competition. And that helps keep the family unit strong together, because even though you have younger children or whatever, and you can still provide that vision for the younger children and stuff like that, where they can come on board as well and be a part of that process as well. And that there's a lot of magic that can happen there when you start leading from that space of being that servant leader, providing that vision, providing that space of stability and all that sort of stuff, and that space for growth that not only comes from you, but it leads into your wife and then even your children as they are growing and stuff like that. It's an amazing thing what can happen when you are all together working forward or moving forward as a family and as a couple.
You know, it's funny when you're talking about outside influences. I think this is the first time that you and I may actually have a position that we don't necessarily agree on. And that's okay. Here's what I come from, or the position that I come from in regards to that. It's okay to understand that everyone's going to have their own opinion, their own way of doing things. Your goal is based on what is good for you and your family. And so the only feedback that you really need is feedback from your own experiences, your own evidence, as well as the support and the input from your significant other. Those are really the two that you need. Outside influences are mainly distraction. When I say outside influences, I mean outside that unit. Even your parents and your in-laws, especially your in-laws. I'm kidding, but it's the kind of thing where too many cooks spoil the soup. And it's important to understand what it is you want to achieve and say, this is what we're going to do. And until it shows not to work, we're going to continue to do these things. There was a movie I watched recently, Gran Turismo. It was created by PlayStation around this idea of this one. I don't even know if he was an ex-racer, but this Japanese gentleman who wanted to make racing accessible for all people, and so created the very first racing simulator, one that is used by even NASCAR nowadays because of its accuracy. And what he wanted to do was he and Tim he had recruited this marketer to get Team Nissan on board to take these gamers, these people who were just behind a screen, and demonstrate that their skill at using these racing simulators was as good as actual racers. And so they created this whole thing, the Gran Turismo Academy, went from 2009 to 2016. And the training that went involved in the movie, there was the lead engineer who actually was so skeptical that his opening speech was, "I want to prove that you can't do this." That was his goal, to prove that you can't do this. Now that's an outside influence, and these gamers have their own idea of, I can do this. I can prove that I am as good as racers who have spent years in an actual vehicle perfecting their athletic craft. And lo and behold, they were correct. They were able to show that they could do this. The outside influence then went from disbeliever to believer. It's a great story. If you have Netflix, look up Gran Turismo and watch it. It's a fantastic story. If it follows one particular one racer in particular, his name is Jan Middelborough. He's a Englishman who went into the Formula 3 and raced there. Fantastic story. Anyway, the point that I'm making is that when you have a vision, make sure it is your vision. Make sure that what you are creating is something that you know that you want and that your family can benefit from. And that aligns with you. Not with Joe Blow down the street, not with Uncle Tom, not with your stepmother, Victoria, whoever it might be. That you are doing this because you know that it is going to work for you and your family. That is the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jason. I understand where you're going with this, and I think maybe I didn't quite articulate exactly what I was meaning by some of the stuff. Like when I'm talking about, family, I'm talking about like younger children, not children that are outside of the home. When I'm creating like a family vision in a sense, right? Because to a certain point, when they're younger, they're under our influence, right? And stuff like that. And so that vision point that you're talking about, where it's what we're talking about for vision for our family and stuff like that. I mean, we watch videos, we stuff like that, and we do have people that are going to want to talk into us, like our parents and stuff like you talked about, and things like that. That are going to try to influence us in one way or the other. And what Jason is talking about, what I believe we both agree on, is a sense that, okay, yeah, we can receive these inputs, but we receive them through a filter. So that when we are looking forward into where we're going with what we're doing, and we're leading our particular family, like our wife and our children and stuff like that, we are holding true to what that vision is. If I'm understanding what you're saying.
Yeah, it's basically saying that I know where we're going, and I can lead us there without crumbling under pressure. And because of that, you can trust me. And that's really the message that you are giving. I know where we're going, and I believe this is the right direction. Because of that, you can trust me.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Oh, and this is, yeah, so everything we've been talking about today is really, I believe, going to be really a great foundation for those of you who are listening today to really take hold of and lean into what is there and what you have going on in your life, and to start creating that vision for yourself and what you want to do in the relationship you're in. And if your relationship right now is in that point where it feels like it's crumbling and it's fracturing and all sorts of stuff, don't be so hard on yourself, but really start to look at, okay, what am I doing? And ask those questions. Where can I make changes in my life? Where can I grow? Where can I start to provide that vision? Where can I start to provide that emotional security? Where can I start to be that stable lighthouse? Where can I start to take accountability for the things that I'm doing that will start to provide that trust? Where, when you start to take accountability versus trying to push the blame on others, by taking that accountability, you start to build that trust, which then starts to work on that security. And through that, you're growing, and they're providing that growth process. And everything we talked about today, it's all about just taking those steps. It's not about having to be, I got to be here now before I can make these changes. No, start making those changes now. Start looking at ways that you can grow now, and start providing that vision now. It's not about, like whatever, like I gotta be at this point. No, start now. Make those mistakes. Learn from those mistakes. Don't be like that. That's the hard part, is step out of that fear and just start taking those steps forward. And that's what we're wanting to really encourage you today, is just making those steps forward. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And so as we are closing up for today, that's our word of encouragement for you. Just take the steps one at a time. And, and part of your growth journey, we would encourage you to continue to listen to the content that we have, we're providing forward as you go forward. So, subscribe to our channel. Look for other people who are speaking about topics that we're talking about that will encourage you and strengthen you and help you move forward on your growth journey. Because it's not all about Jason and I. We don't have all the answers either. As we continue to grow and move forward ourselves, we're just providing you from our experience. We're sharing with you from our own experiences, from the things that we have learned through the mistakes that we've made. And so that's the information we're providing for you. So we're just inviting you to subscribe to us, to share our message with others, and to check out our website, www.liftingthesoulministries.com, and connect with us. We're on almost every social media platform, and on our website you'll be able to connect to us through email and stuff like that, and we'll be happy to talk further and discuss with you where you're at in life and help you along to the best of our ability.
Really, the idea of this is to, yes, provide you with a great platform where we can share a lot of great concepts with you that have to do with how you can improve yourself as a man. And as Jason said, if you like the content, you can always go to www.liftingthesoulministries.com and learn more about what we have to offer. And of course, like, share, and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with everything that we're sharing. If I were to give one closing remark, it would be to help you understand that masculine leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about carrying the weight of responsibility with love, vision, and strength, and demonstrating this so that your partner wants to support that love, that vision, and that strength with her own love, grace, and support. And it's through that cooperation of those two things that makes almost anything possible. Having the direction and also having the support.
Well said, Jason. Well, everybody, until next time, much love.
Take care.